We engage in authentic conversations about our weekly entrepreneurial goals while exploring business, failures, success, and personal growth.
We're going to continue to work and get better at this, so thanks for tuning in.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Our vision will highlight a diversity of guests who are creatives, industry leaders, and individuals creating positive change within our communities. Join the Our Vision podcast on our shared journey to becoming better humans. It's not only our vision, but it's your vision too. Let's get into it. And we are live on the air, Joe.
We are. Episode
6. It's just us.
Tonight.
Just us tonight. What'd you do today?
I went to a friend's birthday party, but I want to tell you a funny story about that.
Okay.
So
Let it rip.
A friend of mine invites me over to another friend's house for a birthday party. So instead of buying something, like going to the store, I had a spider plant that I was going to give as a gift, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get there, and I think I'm there for one friend's birthday, but it's actually her daughter's birthday.
Okay.
It's quite a difference.
But you thought it was your friend's birthday.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
It wasn't. It was the friend's daughter.
How did you not know that?
Because there's one letter difference in their names. And we were going to the individual's house to celebrate it. And that person had the similar name. So I got it confused. I thought it was...
Did you get her kid a gift at least? Even though you didn't know?
I gave her...
So did you get your friend a gift and then give it to the kid?
Yeah. So we all laughed about it.
Yeah.
But she's known me for years, so she's older. The daughter is a little older, so she thought it was hilarious. So while I was there, she walked by the husband of the person that was hosting it, and the young girl whose birthday it was today smushed a little icing on his face, and then all kinds of hell broke loose.
On whose face?
The young girl that was turning 17 today. And so the host husband, the people that own the home, he's sitting there, and I'm like, he's letting her do it, but there's like frosting all over his face, right? And I'm like, all of a sudden he takes his shoes off. I'm like, I think this is about to get really messy. So then he smashed cake in her face. So
who is this that did this?
I didn't want to say names, but
well, I mean,
it was
not. I don't know what the fuck I'm even saying.
It was.
You don't have to say the name.
A's daughter. So who invited me over there?
Oh, okay. So it was the dad's daughter.
It was a friend.
Okay.
So I'm sorry if I told it. I told the story poorly, but
maybe
anyways,
I wasn't listening very well.
I might have told it poorly too. So, but anyways, it was fun. We had a good time and ate food and chips and dips and cake and kind of just sat around and talked, and then went out to his like wood shop and looked at all his like everything he's been working on, and he's in the middle of building the countertop for his counter and little like island area that he built. So it was fun. Does
he do it for a hobby?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when he bought the house, he didn't know much about doing any of this stuff. So now he's like, he just put some vinyl planking in, and then he actually did vinyl planking on his steps down to the basement area. And then he used that transition piece that you and I were working on in this place and was able to cap that all off each step. It was really interesting. He put that channel in and it just pops right in. So it's really nice. I'd like to show you sometime.
Yeah,
I think you'd be interested in looking at that.
And you can get those anywhere, I would imagine.
What, the
hardware store? Or?
The channel?
Yeah.
The transition. Same transition thing that we were using.
But a little different, you said.
No, I think there's a different way of using it too.
Oh, I see.
So there's like a part where you can strip it, and then you have like a U channel, and you put it right at the edge, and then that capped right in to the edge of the step. And it really finished it off nice. So anyways, that's what I did. And then I also was working on custom white balances today for snow.
What'd you learn from that?
Well, I'd read about it before.
Custom white balances. Can you say specifically what it was?
So
what?
Specifically tomorrow I'm going to do a photo shoot for a client, and it's an engagement session. And we're going to this like castle, and there's snow on the ground right now in Ohio. And if you do not set a custom white balance, the camera really fights and makes either a blue or a gray, makes snow look gray. So luckily today you were reaching in and we had that, I think it was called the Expo disc.
Yep.
So I went out and tried that in a few different lighting conditions, and I tested it, and it came back and did the edits on the computer, and they look really nice. So I'm really excited about setting the custom balance tomorrow to make sure that we have a nice crisp snow looking for them and it doesn't look awkward blue and gray. So
right.
I went for about a 2-hour walk. Went out to behind a college that we have, was like an arboretum, walked around there, and then I went over to a marsh and walked there for a little bit. Fucking cold. It was like, what is it, 19 degrees today? But
just testing out the photography and snow conditions.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, it made a big difference having that disc on, that Expo disc.
Yeah, so...
And how do you use that?
For this scenario, I would set my exposure to you, what I want to shoot you at. And then I would come to where you're standing and shoot back towards the light, right? And I put this disc over the lens, and I take a shot, and I set in my camera, I go to custom settings, and then I choose that image that I just took with that disc over it. And what that does is it sets a custom white balance for you. What would have been known as 18% gray when we had film cameras. Yeah. It's a digital version of that. And we still use that, but the 18% gray is calculated different than it was for film than it is for digital. But that's basically what you're doing is you're, especially in snow, I mean, you're talking about the reflective value. It's really bright, and it kind of makes the sensor not really understand what to do on the evaluating metering system. So you have like spot metering, and you have different metering systems. It's trying to meet that middle ground, right? If you're not on spot. And so that's what I did, played around with it. But it made a huge difference, and I think it's something I might keep exploring, even not just for snow. I think I got to get better at doing that for portrait work outdoors, because you always get that green cast and everything, and I think you can work some of that out. And even though you're shooting raw, Brad, you and I both agree on this philosophy, I think, is like, you still have to have a good product to start with. Like, yeah, I can come back and post and fix some things, but some things you can't fix. Like if it's gray snow and your white balance is that far off where it's really blue, yeah, you can fix a little bit of that, but it's affecting and shifting all the other color values. Shifting all the other color values, and it muddies it up. So I think starting with doing that consciously on purpose, a better image in, then you go back and just tweak a little bit. Makes more sense. It's a step worth taking, I think, for your clients and for yourself if you want to produce good work.
What time when are we leaving tomorrow?
Well, we got to be there at noon. Shoot. I think it's over an hour away, so I like to, I always like to have a half-hour buffer.
2 hour? Yeah. 2 hours early?
And maybe, depending on the weather, because we might get some more snow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to check that out when we're done with the podcast tonight. See, if it's going to snow more. So, anyways, okay. But yeah. So, yeah, we really, really enjoyed taking some time and walking by myself, not only being outdoors, but also working on producing a better product. Yeah. It's a nice day. And I was starting to feel really, I don't know about you, but I am tired of being in the house. I wanted to get out. I don't give a shit how cold it is. It's nice to get outdoors in Ohio in January after you've been inside for 15 days, 20 days.
Yes, sir. What are you drinking?
Some tea, man. Yogi tea with infused vitamin C and some other stuff in it. It's really good.
So people can hear you,
Sorry.
Joe. That's okay.
Yeah. Just picked up some tea with vitamin C.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So guess what I did today?
What'd you do?
Nothing.
It's not true though.
No, I stayed in the house. I didn't get out. I stayed here all day. I shoveled the sidewalks because we got a bunch of snow. Worked on. Still trying to come up with more ideas for this show.
Man,
wrote down some additional names.
Yeah.
Out of the 500 that we have already.
I think we should probably cross off some at this point. We've got to keep throwing ideas.
Nothing's clicked yet.
There was one today. There was one today that kind of clicked, but it was taken. Yeah. That kind of sucks, but anyways, that's kind of fun too to look for a name. I don't know.
Yeah.
but it's got to make sense.
Right.
It's got to feel right.
Anywho.
Was there anything we needed to correct from last episode? Everything was, I mean, that was a long episode.
Correct.
Yeah. Was there any corrections we had to make? Or?
I need to speak more.
Yeah. Well, you're doing fine now. So, but there wasn't, like, information wise, there was nothing I don't think we had to correct.
No, I mean, no.
I
need to quit saying I mean all the time too. I say that a lot. In certain situations I do, so I gotta cut back on certain things that I say when I get anxious. Oh,
the other thing I did today is we recently have purchased here. We've only been living here a few months. And I went down and met there's a lady who's lived in the area for 60 years. She told me today they've been there. She was in the house for 64 years. So she's a little old lady down the road. And I went and introduced myself to her today. And just trying to get to know our neighbors a little bit. Because I always think I think that's a good idea.
Oh, and you spoke to the neighbor too.
Yeah. Yeah. Out back?
Yeah.
I did. We're working on a zoning issue, so I went back and talked to our neighbor behind us who has a commercial piece of property, and he's not really for. We want to Airbnb this at some point, so we're working on getting it rezoned, and he's not for it. But we were able to have an exchange and disagree with each other, and ultimately came down to, like, he won't stand in the way, but he's not going to go out of his way to make it do anything really for us. But, yeah, kind of good and bad there.
I don't think it's bad. I wouldn't say it's bad. He's going to decide to do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
But we can still move forward on it.
Yeah, I was just a little more hopeful that he'd be, like, I don't think amicable is the right word, but that he hadn't taken such a strong stance against it as far as, like, his philosophy on it.
Well, I also think that, when you kind of suggest something that he should do with his property, he's going to be more defensive, I guess. Not that he was defensive, but
no, he was actually easy to talk to.
Yeah,
but I have a kind of a good rapport with him that I was able to build with him. But he's stuck in his ways. That's okay.
Yeah,
he's got it in his head that it might be bad. But people are doing it and not having bad or issues happening. So I think it's the way you manage it, like we talked. Which brings us to a point of the idea that you came up with, the way you manage something. So you came up with a couple things today we were talking about over this last week.
Yeah, so over the week, we've been discussing how important it is to follow, common business practices, because I stray away from it occasionally. And the situations that I typically tend to stray away from that is when I'm dealing with people I know, or with people who know somebody I know, I guess you could say. And sometimes I let it go with other customers, but what I wanted to get to with that is we talked a lot about contracts and how important, like, if you agree to a deal with a client, always making sure that they're signing contracts. I don't like to call them contracts. I like to call them agreements.
Yeah.
It's kind of a more friendly term, I guess.
But, and the other thing is too, is that we may have talked about, but I'm not sure, is like that a business has a process that they go through. It's a predictable process, right? So we have talked about this over the years. Like a predictable process. Like, if you're going to do they're hiring you to create content for them, that we know that, like, they have a folder, their name, like what goes in it. Then we're going to have an agreement, and then we're going to, so, like, I think we fail at that sometimes, or I have been failing at that over the last years. It's like not having all the content in one area. You're really good at file management when you're creating a project, but I'm talking about, like, the communications with a client, or the sales process with a client, or the agreement. And so I think we're talking about tightening those kind of things up too, is like, so it looks the same. There's things that we do for every client that should be just no-brainers. They're already done. There's a document, they go in it, they get put into a contact list, they get put into, like, this is their assets that they give us. This is, so everything gets stored so that when we're working with them, it's just easy we just know there's whether it's client A or client Z, we know how to get to that content to create more work, more product for them, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So trying to break down some of those processes, I think, is really important for us this next year.
Yeah. And it's also important to go in and discuss what the scope of work is when you meet with them, what the scope of work is, what you're giving them, what they get in the end, what the final product is. So,
give me an example of that. So
like the scope of work, like understanding. So again, what are they getting? Letting them know exactly what they're getting. How many? So in my case, I do video production. So it's like, okay, you're getting 3 videos. You're getting a 2.5, 3 minute video, 30-second video, and maybe like a minute video, for example. What other items they're getting with that? What you're including? Like, what is not only items? Like, I mean, it could be music, it could be effects or titles or whatever it is, graphic design.
And some of this would depend on the budget. So this is the idea of like, we want to create this for you, but so mashing that all out, getting that into an agreement, the deliverables, how they're going to receive it, how it's going to be used, and understand what we're creating for them, and have that written down in a kind of a linear way, right?
Yeah.
That's part of our agreement, right? So I think you're right. I think that's really, to me, that's really important. And I've done the same thing in business too. I know you, so it's like, it's okay. You don't have to sign anything, or, oh, it's okay. Or maybe giving them too much of a discount because you do know them, or there's somebody, so there's a cost to doing business too. So, I think process driven tools or habits are really important in business. And each year I've been doing this, I'm trying to streamline some other things on my end too. And one of the ways I've been able to do that was with Google Docs. Has really helped me out. I don't know how you feel about it, but that has been a wonderful tool for me. Yeah,
so making it clear on what the client's getting, just making sure everything is clear with them. Because I run into a lot of issues where clients want all the raw footage. That's not how it works, because we're a production company. We're providing the final video or videos, and that's what they're
you agreed to a 30-second spot. You didn't agree to have a terabyte worth of footage to create something else out of.
Being clear on all that, because a lot of customers don't know that, understandably, and it's okay to be upfront about those things.
And the payment we've been struggling with.
Payment too, understanding like how that works. Like I do 50% up front and 50% when the project's complete. But sometimes I kind of veer away from that and I let it slide, and then I kind of screw myself.
Right. So you're 100% out right now on a couple of clients because we didn't have a contractor. We did the work. We're not getting paid, and we're chasing them for that money right now, and they're using the content already. So part of the process that we're talking about is we want to eliminate that, right?
Yeah. So hopefully it helps other people not make the same mistake that I've made or we've made or whatever. Yeah. So now I'm being strict with it and making sure that we're sitting down, we're explaining the terms, what they're getting in return, having them sign an agreement that protects both parties.
There's something to be really said when you go to sign something. Now you're focused on it. If you're just having these emails back and forth and they're scattered and you're busy and you don't have to sign anything for it, the scope of the project can get lost. But when you sign something, you're like, oh shit, like this is real. I better look into this paperwork a little bit. Is there something in here that's going to affect me, or is this good for my business when they're contracting with you? Yeah. And to me, it just means that you can have an open conversation about a project, and definitively it protects both parties. Really, they know what they're receiving. They're not surprised by the sticker at the end of how much it's going to cost them, and you've agreed upon it. And if they are surprised by that number, then you can scale their project to fit the needs of the budget. And I think that's going to be very helpful moving forward and save a lot of runaround.
So we make those mistakes, and it's okay to make those mistakes, but to limit the problems, always make sure you have a nice system in place with agreements, with clear communications and understanding between both sides, with you and your customer, what the scope of your project is.
And how it covers.
creative.
And I thought you brought up a good point this week, and I really like it, is that as we move forward, the video will have a watermark on it until completion of payment. And I like that. I
came across that, and I never thought of that. I know it's commonplace in photography, but I never thought of it in video.
I really like that, because because what's happened to us and what I've seen happen is that they're using the content already. And, in one case I can think of, 3-4 months, one person, and they're still out. They still owe. And this would stop that. This would make it real. Oh, I can't really put this on my website.
I can't do anything with it until...
I can't send this to my marketing agency because I haven't paid them for the product. And I think that's a fair way of doing business. I mean, most people that are in business should understand that you pay for something when it's due. Yep. Unless you got a line of credit with us, and you don't have a line of credit with us. We don't have that kind of relationship with our clients. So yeah, I thought that was a great idea, Brad, that you came across. And that brings you to the point too, is that you learn that from somebody else that's doing that, and it works well in their business.
Yes.
So, so you're constantly learning and tweaking it,
and I've been trying to figure out a way to simplify the agreements. So that was another thing that I did recently, was got a contract put together that's streamlined and easy to understand and read.
I like the billing too, the invoice. So you have all these details that are maybe more in depth on the contract, but then when you went to go invoice, we were looking at the format this week. So the invoice is not as comprehensive as the contract. I like that kind of thought process, because they already knew what they bought.
Yeah, so having the details of the scope of the project and what they get in your agreement, and then you don't have to itemize everything in your invoices.
Yeah,
because I've done it both ways. I've itemized it, and that's what I've been doing for a while now. What I was doing in this works too is separate from the agreement, the project agreement or production agreement. Aside from that, I would have an additional paper that would kind of go along with the agreement, but it was separate, that would have it all laid out and itemized on like pre-production, production, what's going into production, like how many crew members are there, how many DPs or camera operators are there extra ones, and then post-production, and then I'd have it all laid out, and then all the extras and fees, like there could be travel fees, there could be a fee for music if they're using music in their videos.
They're licensing music from other sites or whatever. So you want to have those discussions ahead of time, though, so that the individual knows, because that's not cheap. For us to purchase, to have that as a business, we have to go through and have a subscription to something to be able to do that, or to go find the music and actually purchase it on a one-to-one case. But
for example, I have a subscription to music websites that have licensed music, but you also have to think, how much time are you putting in that? This is just an example. How much time are you putting into finding a music track? And it takes a lot of time just to find the right piece. And so you got to think, like, what do you value your time at when you're doing that? You don't want to just charge like a portion of your subscription. You want to charge
your time.
What the time is that you're putting in to find.
Keeping it fair for the client too, but still compensating for that a little bit too. And I think sometimes we can charge. Sorry, I don't mean to talk.
No, I was just gonna say some client. There's a variety of licensed music out there. Anywhere from, you can buy a subscription for a couple $100 for the year, all the way up to like, you can get into the thousands with some music, with higher quality music.
You were looking some at the other, when we were working out of the other place before we moved in here, and you found.
We have a client that's coming up that wants higher end music.
And I was going to go back about the invoicing one more second, though, is like, I had an issue where I like the idea about having more of the details in the contract and then less in the invoice. And so, but I ran into a thing recently where they added a few more days on beyond the contract. So I had to break each event down because it wasn't part of our contract. And I felt obligated to kind of like, oh, this is this much for coming in to shoot this amount of time, and this was because I had to come in and I had to have another person with me, and this is, and this was for 29 individual headshots, and this, so I felt like I was obligated to break that down, even though I had it in my contract. And I really don't know if that's more of how I feel, or if I feel like At least the person who's cutting the check can see what they're doing. And so I'm kind of on the fence post about that too. Me personally, if I was cutting a check, I kind of would want to see what services were granted. You know what I mean? Not just, blah, 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 blah. X company did, here's the bill, with nothing on it. So I'm kind of still dancing on both sides of that fence of having, where's that cutoff for the information? How much do you provide on the invoice? I don't know.
I like simple.
I do like simple because
I've always liked simple, and I think keeping the invoices simple, as long as all of that information is in your agreement or however you do it, that's separate from the invoice, keep the invoice simple.
Okay. Well,
that's what I would say.
Still struggling with it a little bit. I'm still thinking about it, but I agree with you. Simple is always better as long as it benefits the client and benefits you.
As long as they understand everything they're getting. So you're not hiding anything, any information
But that goes back to the signed agreement. You'll always have that to point back to if there is a question. So if you simplify your invoices to them, you should be able to have that signed agreement go back in. There should be an email chain of command for signing that. There should be a shared document with the client to let them know that that's been signed, or a folder that they have access to. That's how I've been doing it. And that way there's no question about it. Like, there it is. We signed that 6 months ago or 3 months ago or 2 months ago or a month ago or 2 weeks ago when we agreed to do the assignment or create the content. And so I think that's a tweak, right? It's an adjustment to failures. You start to realize it's painful to chase the client. It's also sucks to not have one of the things I don't like either, Brad, about not having a contract is that it sucks not to have an outline of what you're doing. Like, it's not a well thought out project if you don't have an agreement, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I know you feel the same way, because the more planning you do, and I'm learning this more and more. I've watched you edit for years, brother, and I don't think on those terms when we're on site. And you see things differently because when you get back, it's not that you just shoot. It's not that you're just coming up with the technical aspects of shooting something well. So you got to come back and put a piece together for them, right? And I've been around it. And I'm learning more each year that we do this, but if it's not planned out, it's difficult for you. And I've seen those projects where we come back and there's not enough footage on some level, or it's not linear in thought, or you got to piece it together to make the story happen. And you do. I mean, the product turns out okay, but it could be better. We always think it could be better, right? You and I have always said that. But that pre-production planning to us and with the client is very valuable, because we want to make sure that we're producing something that makes sense for their business or their whatever they're doing, right? And you can't have that by just flying by the seat of your pants and going in and shooting.
You can, but it's better to go in with a good plan, with a solid game plan on what you're doing.
I don't think it works as well.
If you have to write out a shot list, if you have to storyboard it, if you have to even script it out, whether it's a scripted narrative or whether it's just an overview of what you're looking to capture.
Well, and I'd like to
a narrative.
I'd like to come up with a process for simply, right, of what are they trying to accomplish, and make sure that it makes sense.
Yeah, what is their problem that they're trying to solve?
Because sometimes they'll come at it at a different way if you don't know that, and you start to talk about that, and you go, well, have you thought about this, and have you thought about this, or an example. This is a raw example I'm thinking of right now. So you have like a business and they do really good with widget A, and widget B in this middle part, their revenue stream is coming in 3 different ways, let's say. And one's doing really well, and one's like kind of in the middle, and one's kind of on the low end. Well, which one's more profitable for them? Where are they making the most revenue when they're done selling that service or product, right? So we might want to uplift one side, but they might be trying to grow these 2 areas. So we don't know. Maybe they haven't focused on enough content to improve that. So once we sit with you, we can kind of start to think about those things. And then we start to think about target audience, right? Is it male, female? Is it both? Is it an industry? Is it, who is it targeted after? And then you start to think of how you're going to create that content for that audience, right? But that comes with planning. You need time to plan with a client to build good content that works. And that brings me to the other point. I think if we can build processes that are streamlined, that leaves us more time to work with the client in a more efficient way. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Yes. And so to me, it's really important, and I always say this with you, it's important for us to create content that works. And the longevity of having a client. I don't want a client for just one and done usually. I'd like some, maybe it's 3 months before they call us back, or 4 months or 6 months, depending on their size of their business. But I want a client that wants to work with us for years, because the more we know them, the more we work with them, the more we understand their business, the better we are at creating content, the longer we can think about it. Because just because we're on site doing a project doesn't mean we stop thinking about it. And we've done that for years with people. We think about, oh, how would this work better? Or what's some other stuff that other people are doing in that industry? We do that all the time, right? So, and that motivates us if we're working with a client longer. So the process, I think you're dead on. I think it's really nice that we're thinking along this line and building some processes that is simple, efficient, and looks the same across the board for the projects that we're working on for clients. And we're improving that. I think it's really important. It's a good use of our time.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been working on this for a long time, and we've had systems in place, but they weren't perfect, and it's a learning process. It's trial and error and seeing what works, what doesn't.
But even with a process that isn't perfect, the one time we had a contract, and first time we did a big contract, remember that? We're like, oh, we need to fix it. And I'm like, and I remember sitting there talking, I'm like, I'm not going to drop the dollar amount, but it was substantial. And I went, well, it made that much money. It worked. Not that it doesn't need to be changed, right? But at least we did something. And I think that's also important to recognize. I think that's an adjustment to failure. You know what I mean? Like, you just keep adjusting and tweaking, small tweaks. So I don't think you need to go crazy. You need to realize if it actually works.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to have every little system in place at the beginning. The things I would suggest is having your agreement. Doesn't have to be complicated. You can tweak it over time. You know, none of us, I mean, most of us creatives, we're not attorneys. We don't know all the jargon that they use in their contracts and terminology, I guess you would say. And I would just suggest having a good, simple contract for any project you do. It doesn't even have to be a project. It could be something any kind of service that you're providing.
Yeah, I think, if you're doing, if you got a tree service or a lawn service or if you're cleaning windows, whatever you're doing, or cleaning houses or create a product, I believe you should have a contract with who you're working with. I think it just, and not because I think people are inherently bad. I think because it helps to define what you're responsible for. Yeah. Each party is responsible for what, you know?
And also have a good invoicing system in place, like somewhere where it logs all of your invoices. That way when tax time comes, it's all in order.
Oh God, that's a whole other subject.
I use PayPal right now. I was using FreshBooks, and then I switched to PayPal. It was just saving money. And also, what else would you say?
Well, the other thing,
a good invoicing system,
and having a bank account that's separate for that business, right? So
the other thing I wanted to say was keeping track of anything business, whether it's like write-offs, or have your accounting system in place so that when tax time comes, your CPA, you can just hand it over to them and it's ready to go.
Still working on all this.
And I'm still trying to get better at that too. So
we've incrementally made steps towards that.
Yeah.
So like this house that we purchased as an investment has its own account, and everything we run through it for buying things, it has its own account. The business, the video business has an account. The photography end of it has an account. So like, I think that's helped me this year. So you understand where the revenue's coming in at. So you can isolate that and understand where you're going. But that's taking time for me. Like, that didn't happen overnight.
That's okay.
Yeah. I wish I'd have known more of that. It's overwhelming at times, the taxes and all that. To me, it's overwhelming. I don't know how you feel, but
yeah,
I'm very overwhelmed by the whole
taxes
and all that. But
I loathe taxes when they come around and they're due.
No.
Oh, and also make sure you're putting that money away for taxes.
Yeah.
And getting a CPA so that they can help you, navigating what to do with your money that you're bringing in from your business. Whether that be, could be investing in more at the end of the year before tax time comes. That way you're not taking a big tax hit. So,
well, I think I definitely feel like we're making headway on improving the process. It's not just BS, it's actually happening. So, and I'm sure by the end of this year, we'll have looked back and we'll have made strides to making this better for ourselves, the client. And I think that'll cause less anxiety when it comes to tax time too, because streamlining some of these things and topics that we're talking about is ultimately so that we don't have to worry or think about those things at the end or have things build up on us at the end of a project.
It's less thought that you have to put into it. It's there, they work, and it's less of your time that you have to waste when all of those systems are in place. So and the client's time too.
Yeah, because it's important. Just like our time is important, their time is important. Anything you can do to help alleviate communication. That brings me back to the process-driven thing. We talked about this. I listen to, because I'm dyslexic a lot of times. If I'm going to listen to something, I'll read a book. Sometimes I will do it on audio. And I did the 4-hour work week this last year. And I liked how he was talking about processes and that led me to another person talking about processes like you're talking about. And it just saves you time. Everything is a process. So if you do laundry, there's a process, right? If you do dishes, there's a process. If you mail letters every day or package things and ship it out for eBay, there's a process. So anything you can do to set up yourself to not have to waste time. And I think that's what you're talking about. That's what I hear from you, is those kind of philosophies of setting up those systems so it's easier for the client and yourself, because it is very stressful when you are scattering and looking for content or information or a receipt or I noticed this last year you've been really good about keeping track of the house renovations receipts and all that, and we had to return some things and you knew right where to go get them most of the time because you take care of that. You're really good at those. That's just become normal for you on some level.
A story I have from years ago, I was subcontracted through another company out of another state, and this goes back to agreements. So I had an independent contractor agreement that I sent to them before I started the project. I was just going to shoot video and then hand the video. They were hiring me specifically to shoot the video and then give them the footage. And I sent a independent contractor agreement, and the secretary took it to whoever owned the company, and she told me this. She's like, "I'm so sorry, but he said he doesn't have time for this." And I was like, okay. And she said that he said that you don't have to worry about anything, that we'll pay you, but I'm really sorry and I feel bad for this.
Bad. You could tell she felt bad.
She's like, he just told me he doesn't have time for this. And right then and there, I should have just turned it down. And, because that was...
Yeah, it's kind of a
pretty shitty way.
You don't know the
business,
guy. You don't know who he is.
I don't know them, but I was a struggling business owner that needed work, so right. I did it anyway. Right. They did pay.
Well, the one thing I was thinking about is like, why doesn't he have a system? If he doesn't have time for that, why doesn't he have a system in place to let somebody else sign that then?
Yeah.
There you go. You're hiring contractors. Somebody doesn't.
It was just kind of arrogant.
Yeah, it is very arrogant. Sucks.
So I should have fucking turned it down right then and there, but I needed the money, so I took it.
Yeah, and I think that's what happens, like, when I've done that too, or you take a job for less money when you know you're worth more with the experience you already have. We're past that now, but yeah, that sucks. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that you don't have time. I guess I don't have time to shoot for you if I can't get an agreement with you.
Yeah.
Well, we could probably do that now. Yeah, just chasing clients for money. So that'll eliminate some of that. I really think that you're on to something, like making sure we get these systems in place. So,
Joe, we had some technical difficulties.
We did. So we're back, and I thought you brought up a lot of good points about the process, about contracts, about some of the other things we were talking about. I forget what we were talking. You talked about music and the understanding, the scope of what the client gets. Good ideas. things we've learned along the way, right? And we're still learning.
Yes.
And the reason we're talking about this now is because we're actually having some problems right now. We want to correct those, right? So,
correct.
I thought you brought up a good subject for the content for this episode.
What's that?
The improving processes, like
sorry,
contracts and what we wanted to improve, right? I thought that's what we're going through right now in our own business.
Yep.
Right? We do not know everything. So we're learning and trying to figure it out and read and that's in between trying to do business and market and blah, 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 right? So good deal. One of the reasons we started this podcast personally was for Brad and I to get better at communicating, right?
I think you're perfectly fine with communicating.
I am.
I need to get better at
well,
it.
And I think I'm still learning too of how to, I'm still, I guess it's one of the things I do well with people is communicate, right?
I'm just hard on myself.
Yeah. But you do better in writing and text and typing an email and lots of other things that I don't do as good in with our business, right? And so we lean on each other for those gifts. And one of the reasons I think we started this was to get better at certain areas and to have fun, right? And we've only done 6 episodes. This is our 6th.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. This is a totally different format that you and I are working in. This is not going to film something. This is not setting up lighting or sound or it's totally different, filling an hour's gap of communication, right?
Yeah, this is, sometimes I question, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah, me too. So I'm nervously excited to do this. And to me, we talked off camera. We had some technical difficulties, but it's nerve-wracking being open like this because you're going to put it up and somebody's going to watch it. And you line up 100 assholes and somebody's going to like it and somebody isn't, and that's okay. And I think through that process, we're going to get better.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Right.
That's what I hope to improve on. I hope I can improve on that. I hope I will. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe I should just say I fucking will.
Well, I think we've done enough things in life to where if you do it enough, you get better. But you have to be consistently doing it, right? We talk about that all the time, you and I. Action. Big deal. If you talk about it and you're not doing anything.
Can we just talk about Bigfoot right now?
Oh, I love Bigfoot. Yeah, we could.
We'll save that for another episode. That'll be like unlimited episodes in itself.
Yeah, so I think what we'll do is continue to work on those. Maybe we could see what we can get done this next few weeks. Maybe revisit this topic again lightly into other topics about how we've created some documents or read some things that might help us and maybe help you if you're listening. Things that you might think about if you want to make your own money and you have your own clients and things you should think about to streamline that for yourself and your clients to save time. And that's really what it's about for Brad and I, is to save time and have a consistent way of doing something. And that's important to you also.
Indeed, it is.
I think you need to get out and mountain bike, Brad.
Oh my God, that's probably why I'm so...
You need to get outdoors.
Can't think straight.
Really good getting outdoors, man, going for a walk.
Maybe I'll go ride my bike on the frozen lake to like Kelly's Island or Put-in Bay and see if I make it.
Do people still lose their pickup truck by driving on there?
I don't know.
People used to in the 80s. I remember hearing stories as a kid. They would take their trucks out and go fishing or do whatever, and they would fall through or something.
Yeah, I've heard of those stories.
I wonder if they're true. I think I have read that in
the
paper, though. Last year...
people used to do that back in like the 70s and 80s.
My mom and dad, my aunt and uncles would go to Canada, or they did. I know of a trip. They went to Canada and they went snowmobiling. But anyways, I was sitting in their living room in Wakeman last year, And I looked over at the pond. There's like this little pond across the street, and there was this huge crane. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like 15, 20 minutes later, there was this crane pulling up a snowmobile out of the pond. So I guess they drove on it and then fell in. I'm like, I don't know if I'd be driving my snowmobile on a pond. Especially it hadn't been that cold that long. So
Did I tell you I fell into a sewage pit when I was a kid once? We'll save that for another episode. All right, well, I think that's a wrap today.
That's a wrap.
We'll be back at it again.
Episode 6 and
6 and 7's coming up. Hope to get some more guests.
7. Oh yeah, we're gonna line up something. We got to set a goal for that. I wonder if that's going to be once a month or if that's going to be twice a month, because we're doing these 2 times a week.
Yeah, I think just consistently reaching out to people and see if it's something that they would be interested in doing.
Right.
We have somebody that we're going to talk to tomorrow about being on.
I remember you saying something, but I'm blanking right now.
Photo shoot.
Oh, yeah. So he's an interesting person.
Yeah. Got a list of people. It's just a matter of seeing if they'd be interested in doing it and scheduling them and getting them over. But we're still in the middle, within this whole COVID, Corona apocalypse situation.
After we burn through that list, I still want to meet people that we don't know. I can't wait to put ourselves in that position.
Well, you know a lot of people, so I think you would have a lot of insight into certain people.
I'm just really interested in meeting people that are creating a business or doing something positive, or
creatives, business, any
young professionals,
organizations,
that are doing,
could be anything.
Yeah. I'm excited to listen to them and see what they're, like we talked about failure being an adjustment and how they're trying to muddle through, just like most of us humans on the planet. I don't think everybody's got everything figured out, but with time, experience happens.
Yes.
So, well, let's do it.
We're going to keep doing these consistently, and we will be back for another episode.
All right.
And peace out, everybody. Thanks for listening. And if you have any questions or any better ideas than what we have,
yes, please teach us.
Leave a comment or reach out to us. Yeah. We'll have some contact information.
Yeah, I think we'll have what?
Something. There will be some way to contact us.
Oh, yeah. There'll be an email attached to this and everything. So
it'll be on YouTube too. So
we appreciate any feedback and also learning from you. So we look forward to hearing from you. And if you want to be negative, we don't really have time for that. But
you can. Yeah. You can be as negative as you want.
That's right.
As long as constructive criticism. If you're just going to be an asshole, then we don't have time for you.
Definitely want to learn and get better. So,
but I mean, you have every right to be an asshole, so we're not going to keep you from doing that. So peace out.
All right. That's it.
Another high five.